Looks like we're live. All right. Today on the For the Love of Sports podcast, I have Thomas TPJ Price, co-founder of HNB Media and is a co-host of the Hoops and Brews podcast.
Thank you.
Thomas,
How
how
you
you doing
doing?
today, man?
How you doing today?
It's a
Thanks
good
for
day to be
having me
alive,
on. I
brother.
appreciate it.
Now,
I'm a big
thank you for,
fan.
yeah,
Yeah, actually, like last night, because I always do my research when I do anything like this, or if I'm on the opposite end, and I was watching your YouTube channel. I really like your YouTube channel. I subscribed, and I
thanks,
watched a
man.
couple of your videos. I'm a fan.
Well, hey, you're going to be on the YouTube channel, and actually, you're on there right now. I hope that's okay. We're live to
Nah, it's
YouTube as
fine.
well as
It's
to
fine.
LinkedIn, so
No
you'll
worries
be
at
there.
all.
You'll be living there forever. Hopefully, that is the goal. But
That's good.
man,
I'm gonna go
again,
back and watch it now.
very grateful that you're on. Thank you so much. Justin Moser's a good friend of both of ours. He connected us. He thought this would be a little bit of fun, and I can already see it's going to be a blast. But the first question, Thomas, I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I love sports really because of my mother, to be honest. My mother she played sports when she was in high school. She was on and also I'm from Chicago. I apologize. I'm so sorry. Speaking of that, my mother literally just texted me. No joke.
The universe is
Yeah,
weird, man.
it's so weird. I'm
It's
sorry. I
weird.
apologize about
You're
that.
good.
But because of my mother, really, she played sports in high school, and she was always a big sports fan, a huge Cubs and White Sox fan because we grew up on the South Side. But her mother was like a huge Cubs fan. So as a kid, I used to always be in the parks, watching 16-inch softball. And if you're from Chicago, you know about how big the kind of 16-inch softball culture is out there. So pretty much I spent the majority of my childhood in the park watching 16-inch softball, which, if you're, as a kid, it just kind of, it's nice to be outside. I feel like a lot of kids don't really get to go outside as much anymore, or they don't go out as much anymore.
And they should. And right now, obviously, is a little different. Human history is kind of, we're writing a
Yeah,
couple chapters in the history
yeah.
book
I mean,
right
right
now.
now, stay in the
Yeah.
house right now.
But
Please stay in the house right
But
now.
when the world starts to spin and we get back to normal, actually, it's really funny. So my mom is the reason why I love sports so much. My dad hates it. He likes NFL, but just kind of at a surface level. My mom's a very big Mets fan, so we grew up very, very big Mets fans, which was a lot of fun. And she was always the one that pushed us to play. And she also played a significant amount of. I don't know if it's the same thing, 16-inch. I'm not 100% sure, but it was just slow pitch women's softball, and she
Yeah.
would play it, and I was the unaffiliated mascot because I was super young and she was 27, and I'm just like this 4-year-old just running around just like rooting for my mom, and all her friends didn't have kids yet, and so I was like kind of just this little mascot that used to hang out with them, and it was always so much fun. And now, man, it's crazy how those memories that we have as kids, especially it's something like just slow pitch softball or fast pitch softball your mom used to play, carries forward, and it's something that you can really look back on and say, that had a pretty big impact on the entire trajectory of my life.
Yeah. Seriously. And that's also a cool thing about, moms or is that they were human beings before we existed. So even, kind of their little small, kind of tastes and idiosyncrasies and little subcultures that they love, or like, they slowly get embedded in you. So even as you grow older, like I said, like she's really the reason I love sports. I mean, my dad played basketball, but my dad wasn't the one that took me to the park to go and like watch softball all day. My mother was also a softball coach. So because she was a softball coach as well, I was always there seeing the coach and stuff. So yeah, so that kind of stuff, it definitely does like, kind of this. So that's the cool thing about moms. Shout out to all the moms. It's
Shout
Mother's
out
Day
to all
coming
of them.
soon.
Yeah, that's true, man. This we got something going right now, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Your mom's texting you. We're talking about her. It's Mother's Day. There's something going on. We're gonna keep rocking with it. And I have to. I mean, obviously, with everything that's been going on, last night I watched the fifth and sixth episodes of The Last Dance. I mean, being from Chicago, how much cooler is it because you kind of grew up and what everything was going around? How much more emotional connection do you have to everything that you're seeing on TV?
Well, I mean, personally, I'll say this. I've been covering the NBA for I think about 4 years now, however many long years, 4 years now, I think something like that. So at this current point, I kind of have a disassociative relationship with it because it's for like I'm still a fan, but all of like the nostalgia that I really felt about sports, like I don't really feel that unless something tragic happens, like Kobe, for instance, like when Kobe passed, it really emotionally took me back to that place of when I was a kid, when I was in high school, on NBA.com watching videos and trying to find, kind of these guys mixtapes and highlights and stuff, like that. But now I don't really get nostalgic over content like that. I'm just more so looking at kind of from a competitive perspective, but also kind of what can I learn from this more so than it's being about how I felt. So, for example, right, I was hanging out with my cousin for the first time. It was the first time I saw anybody that wasn't kind of my girlfriend for about 3-4 weeks. And she was talking to me about The Last Dance. And the way she talked about it was how you would probably want me to talk about it. But she was like, oh, I felt like I was back in the 90s and it was so amazing. And it made me want to go watch an old Jordan game. And when I was watching it, all I was thinking about was, great, now I got to break this down on my podcast. So I have to be analytical about it, and then my co-host hates it, so now I've just spent the whole time watching it now being like, oh well, he's gonna hate this part, he's gonna hate that part. So I think it'll take a little bit of time for me to kind of go back and rewatch it in full for me to kind of get that feeling. But as of right now, I'm kind of looking at it more so like I'm watching a basketball game. I'm trying to break it down for footage, for content. So I don't really feel that way. But the people that I do know that are from Chicago are very in that moment, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching Mike play again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's actually, you bring up a really interesting point, because one thing I always like to do on this show is understand how people break into the sports industry, because that
Hmm.
is the first hardest step. The second hardest step is then getting to where you want to be, wherever that, I is. Oh, we get your eyes now. Okay. All
Yeah, I'm
right.
sorry. Like
No, you're
literally,
good. You're good, man. You're good. No worries. Just stay awake for me. That's all I need, man. We'll have a good conversation if you
I'm
stay awake.
awake, but I'm also one of those people that I work all night long. So I usually stay up to 4, 6 every night in the morning, and then usually I'll get if I'm working a job, like I might go to sleep at 3, but I'll still wake up at 8 and go to work usually.
My
So
goodness.
I woke up at 12 basically because I was up all night. So
And it's
it was
1 o'clock
so
where you
yes,
are. So
yeah.
yeah, that's
So I'm just having my morning cough. Like to normal people, this is what your probably 7 o'clock in the
hmm
morning looks like. This
yeah.
is my 7 o'clock in the
Man, if I could look that good at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'd be doing something real.
morning.
My girlfriend would be a lot happier.
I
But
appreciate that. Thank you. That's very kind of you.
absolutely, man. It's your butterfly mug. It gets me every time. But with just with that point, one thing
Yeah.
that getting into the sports industry, especially the media side, people don't really take into account is you love basketball. That's
Hmm.
why you wanted to start covering it. Then you
Yeah.
start covering basketball, and now you can't really enjoy it really in any sense the way you still enjoy it, I'm sure, but you can't enjoy it in the same way, because as you said, now you have to be analytical about watching The Last Dance while the rest of the world is just saying, oh my God. You have to say, all right, this part, okay, now I have to how did you cope with it, especially those first few weeks, months, jobs, however you want to say it, dealing with the fact that this thing that I loved is now I can't love it in the same way, and now it's kind of considered work, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Rather than being a major positive, it's actually
Yeah.
almost sometimes considered a negative. How did you deal with that in in your first foray into sports media?
Yeah, well, I think it started really just kind of at the beginning. Like I've been an entertainer since I was 14. I've done improv and all that kind of stuff like that. So I was always an artist and passionate about art and sports because I feel like sports is art. I've always felt like sports is art. I mean, as a filmmaker, sports is art. It really is. Like you have to shoot it correctly for in order for it to look a certain way. It has to be lit a certain way. The colors have to be, they have to look a certain way on television for them to pop. It's literally art. It's just we're watching live art and live competition, basically. So I've always kind of felt that they were synonymous, but when I really kind of got that where it separated was when I first moved to kind of LA and I started to work behind the scenes of entertainment, and then you kind of really get to see how the business side of the art affects the actual art. So it's like kind of seeing the inside of a clock and kind of seeing how the gears work. So now kind of even when you look at it from the outside, you can still imagine what's on the inside. So even with sports, once I kind of started to understand the business of sports, the entertainment value aspect of it kind of started to lack a little bit, but also I gained a greater appreciation for the people in sports that are great entertainers,
Hmm.
because there's a difference between being a great athlete and being a great entertainer. And once I kind of saw the difference, and like when a lot of people, especially when you first come into NBA circles, everybody that loves to, kind of down the NBA always like, that's not the way basketball was originally played. Well, it's like, yeah, if a basketball was originally played the way it was originally played, LeBron James would be dunking in a peach basket. But nobody wants to see that. They want to see a high value entertainment sport where the best athletes are doing the best version of that sport. And kind of once you get behind the scenes a little bit and you kind of see how things move, how contracts go, why players are in certain places and organizations, and just from a sheer knowledge perspective, because we've only been covering the Clippers for 2 years, but we've been doing the podcast essentially for 4 years, and I've been creating media for like 15 years. So kind of it's just, the artist in me kind of died once I got to LA and I saw the business side of it, but also because I've always looked at sports as being art, kind of once I saw that it wasn't really the same. So I didn't, there's really no way to cope with it. It's just kind of how much do you enjoy it? And for me, it's just, I enjoy it so much because it allows me not only the ability to kind of escapism, but it also allows me to be able to learn things, even simple stuff like math. The more you look at player statistics, the more you can kind of see, see correlations and trends, and the more math you have to kind of do on the fly. Like a lot of people, even calculating a true shooting percentage is a simple math equation, but you still have to do it in order for you to do it. So if you're watching a game and you're a basketball nerd and you want to calculate somebody's true shooting percentage, you're doing math in your head. So for me, sports has kind of always been like, I enjoy it because I learn something new, I see something new, but also it allows me to learn new kind of things from it because it's just bigger than, watching LeBron James dunk a basketball, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, man.
the way I cope with it is by the other things around it rather than like the game itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as you kind of described it, it's the artistry, it's the entertainment aspect of it, and really learning and understanding how all of that works to create this product that people like myself are looking at it from just that pure entertainment value lens, whereas you can now look at it, and as you said, I really love the analogy you make with the clock. You know how the clock's not just moving, your watch isn't just ticking, and understand how it's ticking, which kind of is pretty darn cool too. And really being able to see that and see, I don't want to quite call it puppet strings in certain situations, but I'm sure, you could almost make that analogy too, and to kind of see how the people up top and, how you hire and get higher and higher, they're starting to do some things that are making, all this play out on stage, which is very interesting to me. And see, you told me you're not going to mess with the gears, but you're messing with them.
I'm
Man,
sorry.
You're
I'm
good.
Sorry.
You're
Sorry.
good, man.
Sorry.
You're good.
I had to
I'm
burp.
messing-
I had to burp, and I didn't want to burp on the podcast, so I turned my mic down so I didn't burp. I'm sorry. Apologies.
You're perfect. I just don't want you to work, man. This is your.
I'm sorry.
This is,
I'm sorry.
I'll
I
do all the-
apologize. I
You're
apologize.
good, man.
I
You're good.
apologize. I just really didn't want to burp loudly in everybody's ear.
I appreciate that.
apologize.
You're a
I'm
good
sorry.
man. You're a
I
good
won't
man,
touch
Thomas.
it again. I won't touch
So
it again. Promise.
you brought it up. I mean, you've been creating media for 15 years. You've been, doing something since, as you said, about 14 years old. Where did this love of digital content creation, film, and production really come from?
I'd probably say my mother. My mother kind of, she went to Columbia in Chicago, and her understudy was, I believe, like broadcasting and sports television or something like that. She never pursued that part of her passions, but she became a teacher. So I really feel like since I was a young kid, my mother always had, a TV in the house, a VCR in the house. We had an answering machine when I was younger. We had a tape player. My mother has always enjoyed music, so there was always something around to play music on, whether it was a CD player or a vinyl player or or some kind of configuration of some piece of technology in the house. So as a kid, I was one of the kids that just wanted to try to break stuff apart and kind of see what's inside of it and see how it works. And yeah, that's just kind of really how, kind of that started. So even from doing that, I would used to take I remember once kind of what are they called? The voicemail machines. What are they called? What's
Answering
the actual
machine?
name? Yeah, the answering machine. I remember once they kind of really went out of style and you were able to do it over the phone, my mother kind of threw hers away. So I would use her answering machine to kind of like make like little stories and record little stories through the tapes and stuff like that. And then my mother, when I was graduated from 8th grade, she asked me what I wanted as a graduation present. Now, a normal kid would probably say like, oh, I want a bike or a baseball bat or something. I was like, I know you're not going to want to get this for me, but I really want this like $500 digital camera. Can you buy it for me? and she bought it for me. So that was it. Once she bought that camera for me, that was it. And I got that camera, I think, when I was 14. So
And you've been rolling with it ever since,
yeah,
man. I
yeah,
love it.
ever
And I
since.
guess what, like, kudos to your mom again. Shout out to her. A lot
Yeah.
of this is centering around her, the sports aspect as well as the video production, film,
Yeah, you
content
just have to
creation
have people
aspect.
that believe in you.
Yeah.
A lot of people's parents and people around them don't believe in them. And the one thing I can say about my mother, whether she was stupid or crazy for believing in me, which I don't believe she was, because I think I've lived a much better life than I would have had she not believed in me. I think it paid off. And although, obviously I'm one of those people that I was rooting for Bernie because I wanted these student loans to get up out of here. But even with that being said, the quality of my life is way better than it would have been had I not gone to college, had she not pushed me to really like strive to not just be an artist. Because she told me, she's like, you can do whatever you want to do, just go and get an education first, because once you get it, nobody can really ever take it away from you. And once you learn how to learn, it'll be easier for you to learn. And because she's a teacher, obviously these were things that were kind of always being kind of drilled into me. But as a young kid, I didn't want to hear it. I was just like, leave me alone. You can teach at school. I don't need a teacher when I'm at home. But obviously, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
did. So from that perspective, you just really need somebody to push you, or just say, hey, I believe in what you're doing. And if you keep trying and work at it hard enough, you can become successful at it.
And you clearly, I mean, you're well on your way if you don't consider yourself successful already.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, owning a media brand,
Yeah.
HMB. One more time, just want to give that a shout out.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Thank you.
your podcast, like, you guys had a lot of stuff rolling on, which is why I'm really excited to get to chat about this and really kind of understand that path on how you really got to where you got to, which I always think is really interesting. And then again, I mean, you cover the Clippers. Like, was that like that's pretty damn cool? Like having all of that stuff kind of, I mean, you clearly worked very, very hard to get there, which I think is the best part. And that's kind of the way, we like to hear these stories. It's not just like,
Yeah.
oh, I showed up in LA and the Clippers needed somebody and I had a camera. It's like, it doesn't
No.
quite work like that. Like a lot of people in LA have a camera. So I guess let's before we get to HMB, let's talk a little bit. I mean, I know you worked at Full Screen for a little bit. You've done a boatload of freelance work as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like, going to school and learning, obviously, but then finally coming out onto the job and as you said, I mean, you're up till 4, 5, 6 o'clock
Yeah.
in the morning working. What does that entail, and what does all this learning and new content and new places to stream to, like, how hard is it or how easy is it for you to really pick up on all these things and really find your voice and what you want to portray to the audience?
I would say it's pretty intuitive for me, but only because it's second nature. Like I said, I've been once she bought me that camera, there was literally nothing that I could no longer create. It was just a matter of how good would it look. So, for example, even the way that podcasts are set up now, or even platforms like this are set up, where you have both, where you have the video layer, kind of on the bottom part, right? When I was 14, I was trying to figure out how I could record overlays in my Sony Handycam, so that way I could record it in a VCR and record it to another VCR, so that way I could make and have the title say the different names and appear before my scene began. So it's just, so things have just gotten easier. It's way, way easier to just make stuff now. And even when I first got a camera, it was way, way easier than it was for the generation before me. So all I've done is just not been one of those people that graduated from college with a film degree, and because I didn't make it and I'm not Steven Spielberg within 5 years or 3 years or even a year, because that's really how it is for some people, I just quit and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to make films again. I'll just write a movie and maybe one day I'll send it to a guy and it might get made and I might win an Oscar. Like, I'm not, that's not the way it works. I've that's never been the way it works, to be
Hmm.
quite honest. And that's the reason why, me and a few of my peers that are still creating, that I graduated from college with, are still, moving forward and doing things that are great, because we didn't quit. And a lot of these people, they create for a season. You can't just create for a season. You have to create for a lifetime. Because if you don't create for a lifetime, then fine, seasons come and go. You'll just be another person that comes and goes. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine.
More room for you.
More room, yeah. I mean, more room for me, and also more room for the youth. Like, entertainment is a young man's game. So even though I look young, I am getting older, and even my taste and my values and things that I like and that I appreciate are changing. But also, this is a young man's game. And that's just what it is. So as you get older, you either become a person that can orchestrate things because you won't necessarily always be in the forefront, or you become a person that just gets sick of it and doesn't want to do it anymore.
Does something like that scare you though? Like knowing that it's like maybe scare is not the best word, but does something like
Yeah.
that worry you? Knowing like, hey, this is what you've been working towards to your entire life, and now even as you're saying, like the young kids are coming in to take your job, like you did for the people before you. And while you're not old for planet Earth, I don't think you're old for the industry either. But I'm just kind of curious from that perspective.
No, because I pioneered a space. We were literally the first podcast or like one of these forum types of things to ever be put on a YouTube like highlights channel, but not just like some random dude uploading like Pittsburgh Steeler highlights and then like him and his buddy like talking about the Steelers randomly in a video. I mean, like weekly, the way you see ESPN being programmed, we were the first ever podcast to be on a major like highlight channel. And the highlight channel that we were on was called MLG Highlights. And now MLG Highlights still exists, but the original MLG Highlights, which by the time it got deleted by YouTube, was at like 2.2 million subscribers and had over 1.5 billion views, and we had done over, I believe, 15 million on that channel. But because of the industry and how the industry moves, that channel is no longer exists on YouTube because of the fact that within the industry, as content identification gets better, meaning that they can identify your content on random website B, random website C, and put an ad on it, and they can find it, that means that they can monetize it. So if you're the NBA and you have all of these other highlight channels out there that are getting billions and billions of views, yeah, you're monetizing off of it, but the marketing capital that you get from everyone coming to your page rather than other highlight pages is what you lose. So a company like the NBA, whereas at kind of the onset of the internet and YouTube, they didn't care about really copyright infringement or highlight channels or things of that sort. It was helping them to grow their product. But now that they realize that they can monetize on it properly and track it and utilize all the analytics from all of it, now they're going and they're striking down those channels. So even when you see like a channel like a Free Dawkins, which was like one of the first original big YouTube highlight channels, that channel no longer exists on YouTube anymore because the NBA has closed off on that marketing share or that market share for on YouTube. So that original channel that we were on no longer exists, but we were the first ones to do it. And that was 4 years ago or 3 years ago, however many years ago it was. Now you see it all the time. Now you see multiple versions of it, but we were the first ones to do it.
That's awesome, man.
And we still do it. I mean, you can go back and look at our channel now and you'll see it. It's videos from 4 years ago. Now they have 100 views or whatever on them because nobody was, you know what I mean? Like even our main channel that we have now is basically our secondary channel. The main channel where we were uploading all of our actual like main footage and content was going on that MLG, the original MLG highlights channel, which was a highlights channel where basically every day after the game you could go and you could see before the NBA uploaded their highlights, MLG would have the highlights up like 10 minutes after the game. And basically every morning we would upload clips Monday through Sunday, 2 to 5 Hoops and Brews clips of our podcast, and then his highlights would go up every night. So we were programming to get basically like an ESPN would like program our stuff with our podcast. But our channel that we have right now was our secondary channel where we would just put all of like the stuff that wasn't good enough to go on MLG on it. And then basically once we stopped working with MLG and his channel got deleted, our secondary channel became our main channel, if that makes sense. And then he went and started another one.
Very cool. Well, that's really interesting, and I like the way you think about it. Again, you kind of coming from like the highlight perspective, but then also the podcast. So you have the personality / commentaries perspective, which will happen in the morning, which normally that's how ESPN works, and then you get the highlights at night. You're watching SVP because you want to watch the highlights. You want to see what happened that day. Kind of want it in a nice way, nice easy format. So I think that's really interesting how you were able to kind of, as you said, pioneer it, but have the foresight and the see a little bit, I guess, into the past and into the future at the same time. See what ESPN did really well, and then see how you guys can kind of change that up and utilize it and do it better, just for this new age of the way
Mhm.
people are actually consuming content, rather than having to, on DirecTV 206 go to ESPN. Now it's I get it on my time when I want it, and it's more on demand content. I guess how quickly did you guys change, like how were you able to see that, and like what did you do when obviously this page did get shut down? How quickly were you able to pivot right back to your now main channel?
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of kind of as in the background, kind of in terms of my actual background. Like, originally, I came to LA to be a filmmaker. A year into my filmmaking, I went broke because that's what happens when you're a filmmaker in Los Angeles. So my buddy that I went to college with, who actually told me not to move to LA because I was going to fail and be back within 6 months. I was at like my 11th, 12th month. He was like, "Hey, I got a place that where I'm working. It's called Full Screen. Like basically, we work with YouTubers. You just got to send out contracts, watch YouTube videos, and and you get paid and you get benefits." And I was like, "All right, whatever. I'll apply." I applied. I interviewed. I didn't get the position at first, but then more budget opened up, and they were able to hire more heads. So they called me back like 3 days, 4 days after they told me that I didn't get it. So then I worked at Full Screen, and basically I worked at Full Screen as a digital talent manager. So basically, I've managed over 2,000 artists before, 2,000 YouTubers, actually more than that, probably like 5,000, and I'm not joking. Literally managed them. And basically, while I was working at Full Screen and working with these artists, I've always been a creative. I've always been freelancing. I've never stopped filmmaking, because if you're a filmmaker out there and you're working for a digital company and you stop filmmaking, you're dumb, because you're cutting off your ability to forever be able to pivot back to a career where it doesn't take a lot of, you don't have to be the most skilled person to make films. You just have to know what you want to see and have a general understanding of the equipment conceptually. And you can be a filmmaker. It doesn't. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. I swear it's not. Learn the cameras, learn the gear and the tools, and then you can create what you want to see. But there are a lot of people that do stuff like that, or will take a job like working at Full Screen and just stop doing everything that they were doing before completely. I never stopped. I kept making stuff. So because I kept making stuff and I kept working with YouTubers, I was just really learning from the YouTubers while also helping them to make better content. So my specialization in digital media, on the corporate side and executive side, is in content optimization. So I've optimized, thousands of channels for of the biggest YouTubers that you can think of in the world. I've ran some of the biggest YouTubers in the world's channels. I've created content with them and for them. I've created content for Full Screen, helped them create content, as well as help to produce content, as well as help to produce like OTT content, which is like Full Screen had its own platform, which is like a Netflix or whatever. It was called Full Screen. It got shuttered because it didn't work out. But I've helped to kind of make all this stuff happen. So while all of this stuff was going on my professional side, on the creative side, I was looking for something creative to do. My buddy wanted to start a podcast called Hoops and Brews because his manager wouldn't let him come on his podcast where they talked about football, because his manager said that his hot takes were terrible. So he's like, "Hey, you know how to make stuff. Can you figure out a way to record a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can record a podcast. We'll do a couple episodes." And I was like, "But if we're gonna record a podcast, I'm gonna use it as a social experiment, because I'm working with these YouTubers, and I'm gonna use all the tactics that I utilize for them, and try out all the ideas that I want to try out on their page, on our page. And then if it works, I'll just use it on their page." So literally, Hoops and Brews has been like my kind of creative digital optimization, like, mind incubator for stuff. So even when I was doing stuff and working with content for Hoops and Brews way back when, I was also at the same time taking all those ideas that I was working on Hoops and Brews and just putting them with the largest YouTubers in the world and putting it on their page. So as I was updating our descriptions and how we, tagged and titled things, I would utilize the same strategies and pitch those same strategies to Full Screen as I'm working with these clients. So there are a lot of YouTubers that I've worked with that I've helped to kind of give careers and livelihoods, that still love and have a lot of respect for me because of the ways that I was able to help them develop their content. But it was kind of twofold, because I was using both things. Like Full Screen paid for me to live, and Hoops and Brews, gave me and helped me kind of incubate my ideas to give to them to pay to live, but also I was growing Hoops and Brews at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's brilliant that you were able to see that too, right? As you said, like just stopping doing, making films is dumb. Just very, very, what you put it very bluntly, and I appreciate that. But the fact that you were able to continue to make, to continue to film, to continue to do what you love and create, but then also use that creation kind of as you call it a mind incubator. I'll use the word guinea pig to
Yeah.
see what works for those YouTubers while you're also learning from them what works at a very surface level. And again, they both just kind of work back and
Mm-hmm.
forth off each other to help you help them, help you get paid, to help you make your Hoops and Brews page rise and rise and rise. And then I'm sure so the MLG you called it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
MGL.
yeah.
Okay.
MLG highlights. Yeah.
That part
Yeah.
was integrated as well along the way, which was probably something you
Well,
learned.
actually, it was. I'll say this: MLG highlights, and and he won't really get any credit for this. But he's one of. But I didn't just create it on my own, or at least like I didn't. I mean, not create it on our own, but we didn't make it on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We needed him. We had found an audience on Twitter because of the fact that I worked at Full Screen. You get the access to be in a lot of beta trials for a lot of these social media platforms. So originally Twitter had a beta trial for what is now their Twitter Studio, which is basically you can manage all of your media that you upload on a Twitter through Twitter Studio. And basically if you run ads on Twitter, they'll allow you to upload ads that are up to 10 minutes long, and then you can essentially promote those ads as like videos. But then I realized that you don't have to run an ad on every video that you upload, or at least that I was able to upload through my beta. So I was one of the first people on Twitter with videos longer than 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And they were all Hoops and Brews videos that were like 9-10 minutes long. And everybody was like, how are you guys doing this? This is crazy. But also our sports takes, people loved them or they hated them. So at the same time, we were moving and making a little bit of audience on Twitter, but I knew that we weren't ever going to make any money on it. So at that time, MLG Highlights had, I think, either 4 or 14,000 subscribers, somewhere along the lines of that. And at that point in time, because I worked at Full Screen, I knew that copyright protection was coming to basically kill every digital content creator, because I was working behind the scenes. So I was like, you know what? I know that this is going to come and this is going to end eventually. But if I can get our content stolen by all of these, YouTube highlight channels that steal ESPN clips, that steal NBA footage, that steal stuff from FS1, that steal stuff from anywhere where you can get sports, either interviews or footage or whatever, then basically that'll take our content and it'll put it next to theirs, and it'll legitimize it, and it'll make it look as though we're competing with them, and then eventually we will compete with them. So I went to MLG Highlights and I was like, hey, dude, I literally sent them a YouTube message back when you could send people YouTube messages. I was like, hey, if you would like to steal our videos, we would love it. And we would allow you to steal our videos as long as you put a link back to our YouTube channel in the description. And for some reason, I sent it to like 50 different like YouTube highlight channels, whether they were 1,000 subscribers or 500,000. He responded back, at his size, and he responded, no, I can't steal your videos, but I like them. I'll put your playlist on my channel. So our videos literally said on our YouTube channel, really, I uploaded about 200 videos on our YouTube channel before any of them started to get any views. They all said no views. And then suddenly, as I started uploading them onto my channel, and he had the playlist on his channel, as his channel was going from 4,000 to whatever, our videos that were saying no views were starting to get like 40, 50, 60 views, then 70, 80, 100. And then one day he came to me and he was like, hey, the NBA is claiming all my videos, so I can't make any money. Do you guys want to give me half your content and I'll put it on my channel, and I'll promote you guys' channel, and then we just split the money? And we were like, yeah, why not? So as he was going up, he went from, once we started doing that, he was probably like 100,000 subscribers. And then by the time the channel got shut down, it was at 2.2 million.
That's awesome. So that's brilliant on your part too, dude.
Yeah, so I just saw it. I literally just saw it, and I was like, if we can just get anybody that is stealing ESPN stuff to say these dudes are the same as ESPN because I stole their content and put it next to theirs. And literally, I mean, and now that's kind of the way we're looked at. I even have friends or people that are acquaintances that work for ESPN that'll be like, yeah, I can't come on your show because I have a no compete clause. So
Hell yeah.
we're there.
That's
So
awesome, dude. Congratulations. And I love the way you thought about this too. You knew that the the NBA and the copyright was coming. So let's take advantage of it now while we can. And I also like the brilliant way that you're thinking about it. Well, if one of these pages that steals ESPN clips and content puts us next to them, that will then everybody else around doesn't know that I just messaged this guy and said, "Hey, please steal our
yeah,
clips." It's just, "Hey, these guys are also in the media and they also talk about basketball," and bang, that's all you need to know. And at that point, as you said, it legitimized the hell out of you guys. And then you were also still able to ride that wave of, before the channel got shut down due to the copyright. You're able to just take advantage of all those views. And as you
yeah,
said, and the thing is that I also really like that you put, like, you had 2 years worth of videos that
yeah.
nobody saw.
Yeah. Well,
And I think,
it was more like
well,
a
I know.
year, but it was like
Okay.
200 videos.
Okay. Thank
Because
you.
at that
Thank you.
point in time, I was just chopping the podcast up. Now all of the full podcast episodes are available in video. But back then, I was chopping every single video up to be like 5 minutes because I needed them to be under the 10-minute limit for Twitter. So I was uploading on Twitter like 3, 4 videos a day. And I would just be like, you know what? I'll put these videos on YouTube. And if they take off because of the SEO one day, they'll just take off because of the SEO. But the problem is when you start a YouTube channel from scratch, you really don't have any power within the algorithm. You need some level of viewership in order for the algorithm to even pick it up and say, hey, this guy is watching it. His friend might enjoy it. Let me surface this content to this guy. So really, MLG provided us the ability for our content to surface within the YouTube algorithm and the watch time, which generated more suggested views, which meant that our content was being suggested to more people. So it was bigger than just like me kind of throwing them up there. Obviously, I wanted them to get views, but I figured but also I knew that even though we were giving him those, clips, one day his channel was going to get shut down. So we ran the risk of potentially losing thousands of clips, which we did because I believe we uploaded 1,500 clips to his channel or 1,000 clips to his channel. So literally 1,000 to 1,500 original Hoops and Brews clips are not on the internet anymore because his channel doesn't exist. But because I was uploading all of our B content to our YouTube channel, I was just like, whatever, we'll have a catalog behind it in case anything ever goes wrong with his channel. So that was really more so why I was doing it from that perspective, if that makes sense.
It does, but and I appreciate the clarification on that. But I think the point that I wanted to try and make and just kind of
Yeah.
give you the credit for is
Yeah.
the fact that it's not like you just showed up one day with one clip, right? You showed up with 200 clips,
Yeah,
and so if people went back to look, it's like, oh, these guys they've been doing this for a while. Okay, they have some stuff under their belt. It's not like they just reached out to this guy, he liked their personality. It's no, you've done this professionally, air quotes or non-air quotes, however you want to say it, for the last year and change with over 200 clips. I mean, clearly that also adds legitimacy, I think, as
I didn't
well.
even think about it from that way. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on here and spreading some wisdom and some knowledge of all the stuff that
literally,
you've done.
I'm just thinking like a shark. So I'm just like, all right, how can we get blood in the water? More so than even thinking about the legacy stuff. I was just literally thinking if MLG's channel gets deleted, we have no videos on the internet. So I'm going to at least upload something to our YouTube channel. That was literally my only thinking behind it. Not even more so about the back catalog, which thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you working hard. I mean, that's what it really comes down to, man. And so with that, let's talk a little bit about HMB now. So as I said before, you guys work with the Clippers, or you run media with the Clippers, 4 different leagues: the NBA, the WNBA, WBC, and WBA, if I'm not mistaken. What is how, after leaving Fullscreen, how did you guys culminate and come up with the idea to say, okay, let's start our own media company? I mean, we have the podcast, we have some views, people know who we are a little bit. What was the driving force, I guess, or what was the reason being saying, okay, you know what, we're in our cushy jobs, this is fun, we know what we're doing, but let's step out of our comfort zone and start trying to do our own thing even further?
Yeah, well, I still was working at Fullscreen when I started H&B Media. But the thing about it was, because I had been doing the podcast stuff, and I worked at Fullscreen for, I believe, 5.5 or like almost 6 years. So essentially, Hoops and Brews, I believe, started the October after the 2016 finals. So it started in 2016. I had been working at Full Screen since 2013 or something along the lines of that. So everybody saw the beginning of the podcast up until the point where we turned it into a business and we started covering the Clippers. So I was still working at Full Screen while I was working at, while we were working on our own thing. I still keep a job while I'm doing what we do, because even with covering the games, I mean, unless I'm like spending literally every day going from arena to arena or different whatever, we're only covering the Clippers or the Sparks. Usually, it's not a everyday thing. It's usually like a 3 to 4 day thing. So, for example, I was working at a startup last year on the executive side, and I worked from home for a couple days out of the week, and then I was in the office for a couple days out of the week. So when I was working from home a couple days out of the week, I mean, obviously I was putting in my time, but it allowed me the maneuverability to be able to stop working for an hour if I need to record a podcast, and then get back to work after recording that podcast if I needed to, or if I needed to front load my day with, podcast work and just spend the entire rest of my night getting done my priorities, I could kind of work that out and do that pretty much as long as I was like available if I was needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that, because like I said, I still need the ability to be able to incubate my ideas in other places than kind of just in one, kind of through one lens. I'm not one of those type of people where I only am looking at my life from one, kind of through one perspective. So I'm not one of those people where I plan on being 40 with one job, working for one company. I want to be 40 with multiple jobs, consulting with multiple companies on multiple boards and doing stuff like that, as opposed to being kind of a one-man band, whatever. And essentially what we've been able to do is we've taken like the one-man band kind of ideology and just made a two-man band. So everything he and I do, we produce together. And we've been, pretty much, doing this entire media thing together for the past couple of years. So even in terms of, kind of like employees for the company, it's just really been two of us. And even all of the other shows and stuff that we were doing before, we even have a talk show that we produce, but we produce that in partnership with, kind of this collective of females, where they like promote and, stuff, but they're also like models and actresses and, and stuff like that. So we co-produce it with them and basically work with them kind of on a sponsorship basis, but we do the production, if that makes sense. So for us, it's more so just trying to be like strategic and be nimble until we can really kind of generate that revenue where we can kind of get the heads that we need. But even with what we've been able to do, with covering the Clippers, all of that started because, we just had someone that said, hey, what you guys are doing is valid in terms of like the content. And I had a buddy who worked in sports. His name's Eli Horowitz. He's like, hey, I work in sports and I've worked for organizations and I've been a writer before. Why aren't you guys covering any leagues? And I was like, I don't know, because we just do a podcast. He's like, yeah, but you guys are breaking down the podcast. You're analytical. You're using stats. I learned stuff from it. You guys are sharing your content. You should see if you can get credentials. And I took the necessary steps to find people's emails and reach out to numerous people on the Lakers and the Clippers happened to respond and allowed us to come in and cover their organization. And we've been covering that team for 2 years, and we cover the Sparks as well. And then in terms of boxing, because we're now kind of getting to the point where we know enough reporters and things of that sort, and people know us for producing content, other reporters will come to us now because there's not a lot of money to be made in sports anymore in terms of kind of from a media company perspective. There is and there isn't. There are a few major media conglomerates that control the sports media markets, but if you're a writer or a producer or a podcaster, etc., you're not going to really be able to make a living in this industry unless you work for a Bleacher Report, a Athletic, a ESPN, or you have some type of private funding, which I do know a lot of reporters who will get private funding, or for example, like they'll get fundings from like car dealerships and stuff like that, where they'll sponsor a trip for them to go and see a playoff game, and you know what I mean. So but from a like sheer perspective in terms of volume with the money is in owning the content surrounding the leagues, because one day that stuff will be used in The Last Dance. So if you have those interviews and things of that sort, and we have all this content that we've been using, someday, somebody's going to come and make a documentary and say, hey, Pavi, TPJ, can we talk about whatever, and can we see what we got with footage and stuff like that? So That's more so kind of where we're at this point, where we're just trying to produce more and more content that it'll be more so evergreen, because that's really what this market is moving towards, which is why a lot of these YouTube comedians that were YouTube comedians that are transitioning to other platforms are smart, because they're continuing to make sure that they will always have evergreen content. You know, when you see guys that were on Vine that successfully successfully transitioned to Twitter video, which originally was a minute, then transitioned to YouTube video, which really the sweet spot for that was like 4 to 12 minutes. And now they got to go back to TikTok and Instagram. Those are the people that will continue to be around. But you have to have, that content behind you across the board for people to remember who you are across the board, kind of from that perspective. So for us, it's bigger than just the podcast now. The podcast, Hoops and Brews as the podcast, is really like a secondary piece now. It's really more so about covering the sports and really being good reporters, as well as like creating good content, if that makes sense. Because we have to do it all. Like I said, it's a two-man band. You know, ESPN has ABC behind them and Disney behind them. That's a multi-billion-dollar corporation with billions of dollars in marketing budgets. It's two of us being scrappy, covering content, getting views, and really trying to make it kind of happen and continue to grow our business as we kind of do it. But I feel like all of that for me comes with making sure that I'm still doing other things than Hoops and Brews, because if I'm only stuck doing Hoops and Brews, especially kind of in this sports market, you're only going to make so much money being a reporter. I'm just going to keep it honest with you. You have to really, really love it. I'm not passionate about reporting. I'm passionate about making content, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So whereas my co-host is passionate about reporting and the sport and wants to be a journalist and eventually work in the leagues, I just want to make content and make money. So that's where the marriage is, because he's the passion of it, and I'm like I said, the shark trying to, put the blood in the water.
I love it, man. And I love the super, super long game that you're playing. I mean, you're bringing up potentially the next documentary that's going to be made with the interviews, with the content that you're creating 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road, whatever it is. I mean, you're playing the really long game. And I like the way you're looking at it, because it's very easy to get caught up. As you said, as you were talking about before, you didn't become the next Steven Spielberg in a year. So, Mom and Dad, I don't want to make movies anymore. Let me come back home. And I think that part, it does happen a lot. I do think us millennials, the M word, I hate it because it always comes with a negative connotation, but there's always like a lot of us get that kind of, oh, you're entitled, you were given everything. Well, first off, who the hell gave it to us? That's always a curiosity of mine, but that's another conversation. And then,
just boomers.
Let's not talk too much about that, but we'll talk offline about that. How's that sound? But
Okay.
no, and it's just one of those things where, by playing that long game and understanding where your passion lies and where your co-owner's passion lies, you guys are able to kind of create this symbiotic relationship where you both can kind of work off each other and build off each other and kind of continue. Like if he did his thing on his own and you did your thing on your own, you wouldn't get as far as if the two of you just came together, as you said, in that two-man band to just you can create more content around the leagues, which is what he wants to do as a reporter. And it's just kind of this really great relationship that you guys have created. So again, kudos. You're really smart, man. This is awesome. I didn't think you weren't smart, but like, this is really impressive how you've been able to kind of orchestrate.
Thank you. I won't take that as an insult.
Why would you?
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that though. No. Because as a black person, when people was like, "You're really smart," so I was like, well, "Thank you," but I know what you mean though.
Yeah, I mean,
like I said, I won't take any offense to that.
Cool, good.
If he was anybody else, no, I'm joking.
If we weren't, 45 minutes in this conversation and you didn't feel super comfortable with me yet, maybe that's another thing. But no, I mean, again.
You're a friend of mine now. You're a friend of mine now. Seriously.
Love it, dude.
That's why I love Justin, though. Justin is another one of those guys. Justin Moser, who was on your show. He's but also this is the thing about it. As to whoever's listening to this, if you're young or if you're trying to create things, meet people. And networking is bigger than just saying, "Hey, guy, I do this thing. Can you give me money?" It's just saying, "Hey, who are you? What do you do? Oh, great. I do this. Perfect. Have a nice day. Oh, you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn. I'll add you. Hopefully we'll see each other in the future," because you never know who will remember that conversation, who will just be like, "Oh, that guy didn't instantly try to utilize his, his card. I remember that guy and he told me he did this thing. Let me call this guy because I remember he did this thing and he didn't make me feel uncomfortable when we had our interaction. And that's what networking is. So if you're young and you listen to this, network, because I networked with Justin because Justin was a friend of my friend. Now, just because he was a friend of a friend, that doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that he and I had to interact on any level below a surface or a cordial level. But because I took interest in who he was as a person and then found out that he was working in sports, as I started to grow my sports company, he was always a guy that would help to make connections or be like, hey, I have a buddy that does this, or I know this person that's making really cool content. I know you like people that make really cool content. You should reach out to this guy. So shout out to Justin. Seriously.
He's incredible, man. He is
He
so
is.
much fun. Just the opportunities that he has already presented me with in terms of meeting people like you and a couple of our other friends that I'm sure we have made collectively as well. He's
Great
just an
guy.
all around great guy. So hopefully when he does listen to this, he, little smile comes on his face. That's really all we're hoping for there. But no, again, I just like the way you've orchestrated this entire thing and you're kind of, again, playing that long game to do what you want to do. I also like the fact that you said, doing one job sounds kind of boring because I agree with that. Just doing one thing, even if it is like, in technology where every day is different, or sports where every day is different, it's way more interesting to have your hand in a couple different things. Down the road, what are some of these other things that you're potentially interested in, getting into and sitting? You said multiple boards and consulting with multiple companies. Is there a specific space like inside, outside of sports that you're looking for?
Well, personally, I create on all different types of levels, but also I'm more so I'm a businessman from all different types of perspectives. I feel like personally, and I actually have never said this to anybody before currently, but I feel like personally right now I'm at this space where I'm kind of at a crossroads professionally. I'm at a crossroads professionally because obviously the NBA is no longer existing currently right now and probably won't be for who knows how long. So obviously businesses have taken a big hit. My business has taken a big hit. And whereas we were essentially peaking as a business and continue, like that's also the thing about it is the reason why you stay consistent is because you whenever you think your peak is, you're not necessarily sure if you keep going. You know what I mean? That New York stock ticker is going to keep moving. And one day it'll be high, but guess what? 34 years from now, some asshole will be reporting like, oh, the Dow Jones is up the highest it's been in 34 years. You want to know why? Because they didn't stop the Dow Jones. It doesn't stop. So personally, I looked at us as peaking a couple years ago when we were on MLG highlights doing 15 million views a month. But people look at us now because we have more cachet, because we cover the teams and because we're in the locker rooms. And I'm talking to Doc Rivers after every game, and I'm talking to Steve Kerr. I'm talking to Kevin Durant after he drops 50. I'm talking to Draymond Green. I'm talking to Giannis after he beats the Clippers at home. I'm seeing these things in person. It's just kind of a different kind of thing in terms of how people look at it. And so now we are looked at as like an ESPN. So for me, I can't stop doing what we're doing because you work this hard to get to this point. There's no point in stopping because you're tired or because the NBA isn't coming back. Boo-hoo. Figure out it's basketball. It's been going on for 70 years, 60 years. Figure out something to talk about. So that's what we've been doing. We've been figuring out things to talk about. But also from a professional standpoint, I'm kind of overworking for digital entertainment companies on the management side because I've managed enough artists, I've done enough digital content optimization and management, and I'm not really interested in doing that. That stuff doesn't excite me anymore. It was fun. I helped to build multiple companies that are worth millions of dollars, and Fullscreen sold for however much. Go look it up. And I was employee number at 90 something. So go look it up. So, I've been a part of big acquisitions. I've been a part of startups. I've been a part of companies where it's two guys in a room figuring out how to ideate things. And I have a lot of ideas on my own as well. But feel like I'm personally at a space where I feel like a lot of the good ideas have been taken and and there's so many reiterations of the same idea that somebody is saying is good. Like I still have people that hit me up and want to start startups with ideas that I had 6 years ago. Like I did that 6 years ago at this old company, and you want to do this now at a new company? Like this, that's old. Got that idea somewhere in a notepad. You know what I mean? It's somewhere in a notepad written out. You want me to work with you on this idea that I had 6 years ago because you got a little bit of funding? No, it's not going to work. There have already been thousands of people that have come into the market that already have a bigger market share and literally when I was working at Fullscreen, I was working at the biggest company in the market with the share. So it's like, so personally, I'm looking at a lot of the landscape of digital entertainment and digital media, and I'm not really feeling any of it anymore. So I'm at this point now where I'm really trying to ideate what is going to be that next thing for me. Now, whether that be me go and get a job and be happy because I'm about to have my first child and I want to get married and settle down and live a simpler life, because maybe my plans for, having a million jobs at 40 was what I had planned before I met my child. You know what I mean? But at this current point, I'm really trying to figure out what's the sweet spot between all of the things that I know, because I do production, I do music, I work in sports media, I've managed artists, I've done marketing stuff, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a podcaster, I'm a producer, I'm an executive, I'm a whatever, blah, 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 whatever. But at the end of the day, I've always been a person that believes in ownership. So I want to be a part of something that I own. So for me, it's just really trying to figure out what is that next thing that I'm going to make, that I'm going to own. Because H&B Media, if we never make another video again, we've already done legendary stuff. We've already, kind of surpassed what I thought that we would ever be, what people thought that we would ever be. I remember when reporters used to make fun of us and call us idiots because we had takes that were controversial. And now I see those same reporters in rooms and they speak and they just say, hey, how you doing? And they try to be nice now, but they put that fire under me to want to go out and really like work to get to this point. But now that, I'm here, I'm kind of just like, all right, let me see what's next for me, in these next 10 years of my life. I'm about to be 30. So that's really where I'm at. So I'm either going to start another new media company that hopefully will be one of the greatest things you've ever seen, where we'll work with a bunch of different talent and figure out how to help everyday people create stuff and do stuff like this. Even a platform like this StreamYard platform is a really good platform. Remember when you mentioned that, I was like, what platform is that? I've never heard of it before. So now because I've never heard of it before, I'm going to log into this thing and learn how to use it. And I might not ever broadcast on it, but I'll at least know how to use it. And I feel like a lot of people that are our age, as well as the younger generation, don't take, especially people that want to create. You don't have to want to be on TikTok, but just log in and make a TikTok. And then you'll know how it works. So that way, when you eventually want to help people market TikTok, you know how it works. Or at least you've seen it. You understand the UI, the interface. Or if you want to build your own iteration of a TikTok or a Vine, you can know what you would want in that interface and things of that sort. Because none of these ideas that anybody has anymore are really that original. It's just about who's going to make the best iteration of that version. And that's really what I think the future is going towards, especially with kind of, there will be another generation of human beings where this won't exist and this computer won't exist. And all of this shit will just be some headphones where we can design it all and it'll be programmed in the studio. And it'll be like they're sitting here in the room with me talking and you're here and we're having a fireside chat. But so that's what the kind of stuff I want to build for, not like what's going to be the hottest TikTok in 2 years, which is what a lot of these digital companies are after, because they're after the, immediate gains. And also all these companies want to build fast and scale so that way they can sell. And then the guy at the top can get rich, when that's not really what's going to be the thing that's going to last forever. I don't believe Walt Disney went into making Disney with intentions of, I'm going to make this company and this is going to be the biggest media company to ever exist. I think he went into thinking like, yo, I got some crazy ideas. If we can put this thing together, imagine how much cool stuff I can do. And then it made money and he was like, okay, all right, cool. Let's open up a park. Let's get some, we got some film, some merch. You want a hoodie? And that's where it is. So that's kind of how I feel about it. And I personally haven't told anybody that. So you just got something off me.
I love it. That was like 10 minutes of straight fire, dude. That was awesome.
Yeah, but it's like, I just feel like a lot of people my age, especially when you hit this point where you're kind of getting to be 30 or you are 30, and whether those people have either given up on their dreams or they're still kind of looking to figure out what it is they want to spend the rest of their life doing. I'm in the same phase, right? But within that, you can figure out things that you enjoy to try to make something. So I'm not in a rush. So for example, right, I was working at that startup in August. I left the startup in August. I've been kind of nomading it for the past 9 months, and honestly, I've been the happiest I've been since I first came to LA. Not having to wake up and go do a job that I don't really care about, and like I enjoyed the gaming and the competition of understanding digital media. But now that I understand it, and I've been one of the people that helps the people that make the thing that everybody loves. I don't really, you know what I mean? I want to make something that'll help whoever in the future do something cool. And I just feel like at this point, everybody's not really interested in doing that. So I want to do stuff like that. So if you're a person that's in my age that doesn't know what you want to do, you can still find ways, but you don't have to rush it. You can take your time, be methodical, write your ideas down. I literally have a whiteboard. I write my ideas on the whiteboard. I take a picture of it, and then usually I wipe it off because I'm like, this is a stupid idea. But at least I saved it and I have it. And then if ever I come up with another idea, I can think, oh, I have a picture of that whiteboard. This connects with this. And that might be the thing that will be the thing for me, but I'm working towards it. And I think that for the people that are above 25 or above 30 that are like looking at that next phase, look at happiness, because, you know, money comes and goes. We see it. The whole country's broke. Everybody's broke, literally. Or they wouldn't be asking the government for trillions of dollars in money. Everybody's broke. So what do you have? What are you creating? What are you giving? That's really kind of where the point I'm at, kind of, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I love it, man. No, I sincerely appreciate the honesty, the intimacy, the openness, and really getting into all that stuff. Again, I appreciate you dropping some stuff for us that, you know, not everybody's been able to hear before, or nobody's been able to hear, or only close friends. And sincerely, I do appreciate that, because I think this is my favorite thing I get to do. Like, my favorite thing I do, and I do it, you know, 3, 4, sometimes 6 hours in a day, is just ask people like you questions and get to hear that and understand and hear that knowledge, and then be able to share that with everybody else on the internet so that they can learn and understand and get that passion that you just gave us. Because the coolest thing you can do is listen to someone who's super passionate about anything. I don't care what the topic is. I don't care if I love it or I hate it, but hearing someone talk about something that they're very, very passionate in, like you just spoke about there for those last 15 minutes, that's what I love about doing this. And if I could do this every day in my life and get paid just enough money to pay my bills, I'd be the happiest person on planet Earth. And I totally agree with you there. So,
well, you will.
Congrats on the kid too, dude. That's
Thank
awesome.
You. I appreciate
Congratulations.
it.
That's awesome.
You will, though. You know me now, so I'm gonna.
Hey.
And this is the thing about it. And no, I don't even mean it in an arrogant perspective. But
no,
also,
please.
But also, I am a person that I believe in being a conduit, but all part of that through line. My mother, like, she's always been a person where I remember her students coming back to her when they're in their 30s, or would just come back up to the school, and I would be a kid and be, or I would be a teenager, and they would go, hey, I haven't seen you since 1993. I got a job, and I always think back to what you taught me or what you told me to. And I've been there, and I've seen my mother have those conversations. So even when you move to a place like LA, there aren't people here that just want to help other people do things just for the sake of helping other people do things. So I've always been one of those people, because whether you remember me or not, whatever, actually I could help you, connect you with somebody that can do something, and then you might become the next Larry King. You know what I mean? I actually think you could become the next Larry King.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You are the next Larry King.
Holy
in my eyes, you're the next Larry King.
Can I be Joe Rogan instead? Would that be okay?
You can. I'd rather you be Larry King than Joe Rogan, because I love Joe Rogan. Don't get me wrong. I listen to Joe Rogan, and I love Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan is nuts as well.
Yes, 100%.
He knows where I don't get me wrong. He's very intelligent, highly smart, incredible human being. Pioneered the podcast space for the masses, but he's a nut job as well. And I want to talk to him as well, because I just want to like shoot the shit with him and like maybe light a joint with him. But Larry King, I feel like, has been around for 60 years, 70 years doing this thing. That man creeps in, you know what I mean? I can see you being like 80 years old, like creeping in like
TPJ, what we got going on today, man. Yep. I love it, dude. But no, I sincerely do appreciate that, and hopefully we can get that done one day. And I got a long time. You know, I'm only 28 now, so 80 is a while away. And if we just keep doing this, if I keep getting to talk to passionate people like you, man, I mean, that makes my job super easy. So that's all I got to do. I love it. But good stuff, man. I mean, that's about all I got. Hey. Thomas TPJ Price, co-founder of HMB Media, Hoops and Brews podcast, Clippers Media. Everything's going to be in the show notes. Really appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, definitely. I will share this on our YouTube channel, and if you send me clips of it, I will happily spread this to my audience. And like I said, dude, I always love seeing people that create cool stuff and do cool stuff. And the fact that you've been able to teach me stuff and put me onto a new platform, whatever you need help with, graphics or whatever, you need an overlay for your live stuff, whatever, hit me up and I got you. But I really do think that you're very, very talented and you're really, really
Thank
good
you.
at what you do. And just keep doing it. Don't stop, because when you stop, literally, that's the end. So
Hmm.
just keep doing it. You're just talking to people anyways. You would talk to them anyways. So keep doing it forever.
Exactly. This time I just get the red light on. But no,
Yeah.
sincerely, man, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. All righty, dude.